afternoon, everyone. 3 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. It is indeed a Wednesday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are coming at you inside the friendly confines of the Sports Radio 1029 FM The Game remote studios, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Network. And you can always find us on the AUDACY app. You'll just have to search Coastal Sports Digital Network. It's a Wednesday. I hope everyone enjoyed their Tuesday, the 7th of January. You're enjoying your Wednesday, mid-January 2025. As always, get in on the conversation. On Wednesdays, we typically just call it a Wednesday, but we've added a little caveat. It's a Woosah Wednesday, as you guys know. How long will it take the viewing and listening audience to get under my skin? But we're all over the place. We're on Kicks. We're on Rumble. We're on YouTube. We're on SR 1029 FM The Game. We're on LinkedIn. We are absolutely all over the place. We've got some announcements with some platforms coming up. But oh my goodness, you got to be kidding me in the NFL. You have to be kidding me in the NFL. And that's where we have to start on this Wednesday in early January as the news broke right around 5:50-ish, 5:45 Eastern time yesterday. The Baltimore Ravens. Now, if you listen to the show over the last several weeks, and I thought going into the season, Tomlin, Pittsburgh, Harbaugh, Baltimore on the hot seat. I also mentioned this prior to the AFC North battle on Sunday night. I really felt the loser of that game, the head coach, was going to be a dead man walking. Now, we know how the Baltimore Ravens lost the game. Pittsburgh moves on. They'll play in the wild card game, but it was announced yesterday. The Baltimore brass decided to move on from John Harbaugh after 18 seasons, after a substantial amount of success as Baltimore Ravens head coach. And look, you're going to get today, you got it yesterday, the sentiment reports coming out, the perception, the optics, the narrative. It was a brutal loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. John Harbaugh did not get fired because he lost that game the other night against his rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, his rival in Mike Tomlin. He didn't get fired because of that. He got fired. Now, let me preface this by saying this. John Harbaugh, I believe, is a very good head coach. Harbaugh got fired because the message was not resonating with the team. It wasn't resonating through the locker room. When you start to just weed the noise out, when you start to drown it out, when you don't even pay attention anymore, that's a problem. And I said this months ago. This team never was able to get off the mat. This team was never able to collectively catch their breath after they got knocked down a couple times here and there. It just never happened. It never happened. I give them credit, a lot of credit, for digging themselves out of a hole to start the season. But let's just call it for what it is. They didn't run Henry as much as they should. Lamar Jackson had an offseason. He's been battered, banged up, and bruised. You get these reports coming out that Lamar Jackson was falling asleep in meetings, team meetings, and then you got the friction, and you got players that were kind of just drowning out the noise. We're not listening to the head coach. You are talking about an extremely successful head coach who's won multiple division championships. He's won a Super Bowl. He's gone to the playoffs. He's won a lot of games, close to 200 in his career. But every coach, as we've always talked about, every coach in the NFL has a shelf life. Every coach. It does not matter what your name is, what your last name is. Eventually, Andy Reid's time with Kansas City will end. Whether it's on his own accord, who knows? Mike Tomlin's time in Pittsburgh will end. It's just how it is in the world of sports. And I cautioned the Ravens fan going into the season. I cautioned the Ravens fan midway through the season. I cautioned the Ravens fan leading up to this game. I came on the air, on cue, and basically told you. And it's not a shock. It's not a surprise. I told you, the loser of this team, you might see the head coach and the quarterback go. Now, in this case, in Pittsburgh, with Rodgers, who's way past his time, and then Tomlin, who's been there forever, they would probably move on from Aaron Rodgers before Mike Tomlin. In Baltimore, they were moving on from the head coach over the franchise quarterback, Lamar Jackson, who did everything he had to in his power to will them to a win. and this is where the selfishness of me comes into play. This is where the selfishness, and this is why you don't jump the gun and hire a head coach right away when you fire your head coach, i.e., my New York football Giants. And I'll say this as a Giant fan, as a, you know, diehard, cut me in pieces, blue will, seep out Giant fan who's dealt with the ineptness, the frustration of this franchise for the past 10 plus years, the laughing stock, the New York Giants. If they want to bring back the fan base, if the New York Giants want to have some juice, if the New York Giants want to restore order, if the New York Giants want to regain credibility, if the New York Giants want to be taken serious and not as a joke, you go out and you hire John Harbaugh. You don't even think twice. You interview that man, you tie him up. You do not let him leave the building. And I'm not going to nitpick with Harbaugh and or the Stefanskis because I think right now the two hot coaches right now, the two hot names out there, obviously it's Kevin Stefanski and John Harbaugh. Now, if you said, okay, Q, put them 1-2, I go Harbaugh first. I've always been a Harbaugh fan. I don't know what the hell he was thinking against Pittsburgh. I don't know what he was thinking a couple weeks ago when he didn't run Derrick Henry in the second half. I think that was against Cleveland and or Cincinnati. I don't recall. And I think that was almost the kiss of death. But John Harbaugh is a no nonsense. He brings instant credibility to the New York Giants. And also, he's got the special teams background. And also, he's very high on Jackson Dart. It is a win-win. And the interesting thing is now, Wednesday, midweek, we're a couple days past the Giants beating the Dallas Cowboys to close out the regular season, and the Giant fans that were bitching, whining, and complaining about the Giants, losing their number 2 overall draft pick, now they're sitting at top 5. They're not even concerned about that right now. What they're thinking is, go out and hire this man. Go out and get John Harbaugh. Go out and get him. You need a leader of men. You need someone to come in and bring credibility. And you can sit there and tell me all about Harbaugh's playoff failures. That I'll take 10, 11, 12 wins a year and go into the playoffs every year than the nonsense I've seen over the last 10, 15 years with my Giants. It's not even up for debate. It's not even up for debate. Now, there's a flip side. There is a flip side. The Giants decide we are going to bring back Joe Schoen. This is where it gets, as we like to say, a little dicey. So you bring back Joe Schoen. Are you going to give Joe Schoen, which I don't believe they are, Joe Schoen, you can conduct the interviews with potential head coaching candidates. But that's it, my man. Like, take a back seat. It's got to be Mara and it's got to be Tisch that are going to hire the next head coach. You can ill afford to allow Joe Schoen to hire the next head coach. And the other thing is, who's to say some of these head coaches want to play under Joe Schoen? Like, if that's the rub, if push comes to shove, well, you know what? Yeah, we can date a little bit, but I don't want to deal with your friends. Well, we're breaking it off. If Harbaugh says, hey, get me a new GM, I got news for you. Joe Schoen's fanny's out of there. And I don't want this GM to have any type of say or influence or major influence in the new hire. Sure, your job as a general manager, you got to play the part and you got to take part in the interviews. You got to conduct the interviews. But there's absolutely no way I want Joe Schoen to have any type of the decision making, but go out and get John Harbaugh. And I'm telling you, Sal Baltimore chiming in, QQQ, I can't believe it. You called it. This is not shocking. Franny, I'll get to you in a second. Kevin, I'll get to you in a second. This is not shocking. It's not. What's going to be shocking is if someone else scoops them up before the Giants do. And remember, the Giants were flirting with Harbaugh a couple years ago. Sure, you're going to have to take on some of the salary. Okay. There was friction within that locker room. There was friction within that locker room. It was a bad loss. It was a bad loss. Look, John Harbaugh, his career right now, he's a Hall of Fame head coach. You cannot tell me otherwise. So is Tomlin. They both had a lot of success earlier in their career, and then they've had the level of consistency. And I'm sure it was a tough decision by Bisciotti. I'm sure it was. You know, you brought this guy on. He's the third head coach in franchise history. And I'll tell you, this is why, sure, we tossed around the names of Stefanski. We tossed around Flores. We tossed around McCarthy. Tossed around Kingsbury. Tossed around Kubiak. You know, you name it, insert potential head coaching candidate. You have a coach like this that is available. You need to do everything in your power to bring him in. He's 62, 63. He's ranking, I think, 11th or 12th all time for wins in NFL history. He's got close to 200. The Ravens run the title. Okay, I get it. It was back in 2012. And he's had two sets of quarterbacks. He had the statuesque pure pocket passer with a strong arm in Flacco, and then the athletic two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. Now we're giving you Jackson Dart. Take it and run with it. Now I can be really greedy too. Go hire Stefanski and go hire Brian Flores. There's your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator, and I'll roll the dice with these guys twice on Sunday. But we know that's not how it's going to play out. You need someone that brings instant credibility to the franchise and juice. You just need it. And I'm okay. You have it down here. So what? So what? It was a challenging year. Now, look, they were the preseason favorite to win the Super Bowl, but they finished with a losing record. And that was only the third time under his regime. You are coming in now to a potential opportunity, big market. You won't get sucked in with the media nonsense, these clowns and goofballs, little rats that cover the Giants, some of these guys. And, you know, you're a leader of men and you're no nonsense and you've been around the block and you know how to handle the media and you've proven you can win. And oh, by the way, we always like to say changing the culture. You know, we always like to say, hey, you can build a foundation. You can come in as soon as you walk through the building. You've garnered a respect. That's what the Giants need. And they haven't had that since Coughlin. They haven't had that since Coughlin. So for the Giant fan, Kevin C., I don't even want to deal with you right now on a Woosah Wednesday, brother. And I love you to death. I appreciate you always chiming in. Tell me right now, steer clear of Harbaugh. For what reason? Are you nuts? Do you want me to lay it out for you? Shermer, Judge, McAdoo, Dayball, obviously not in that order. You know, McAdoo, Shermer, Judge. Remember Joe Judge? Won the press conference. Brian Dayball. This is, again, the argument too. Well, this is, you know, they could have won more games this season. Okay, fine. Then they're not firing Brian Dayball and he's coming back. And then you have no opportunity for who? For John Harbaugh. I mean, folks, I would even Stefanski if he's out there. Look, Flores is going to interview with the Raiders, and I know they're high on Flores. And don't give me the nonsense. Flores isn't going to get a job because he's suing the NFL. Listen, Al Davis sued the NFL every single solitary Sunday. He sued the NFL every time he had a chance. It's right there for the Giants. Like, be smart. Be smart. And I don't know what the future is going to hold for Lamar Jackson, but I think we kind of already see that it's either the head coach or the franchise quarterback. And we know right now the franchise quarterback isn't going anywhere. Right? He's not going anywhere. So you can't tell me that. You can't sit there and say, all right, well, no. JReb71 chimes in. Q, enjoying the show. Used to be a diehard Steelers fan until they wore me down with the ignorance. That is Tomlin. But anyway, I tend to agree with you. I don't think Harbaugh is dumb, but I don't think he's smart. He has cost so many games. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Henry breaks one for a touchdown. But you certainly run him another play. I don't understand. That is football 101, really. Wade McKinnon chimes in. It's so irritating and interesting at the same time to watch these teams pussyfoot around like they're not trying to win instead of trying to score a touchdown. That could have been a turning point for that Ravens franchise. Yeah, quite possibly could have. I mean, I guess we can say now it is. Is it not? How do you sit there and say it's not a turning point for the franchise and Harbaugh? Look, if there's friction and you've got a franchise quarterback in Lamar Jackson, as I mentioned to you, Lamar Jackson is not the one to go. Now, did I entertain it? Did I sit there and say maybe the Jets should make a play for Lamar Jackson? I don't believe Baltimore is going to blow it up now. Barrett chimes in. Q. The sad fact is that Lamar is already 30 years of age. He was a dual threat quarterback. Cam Newton was a great dual threat quarterback. Go look at his stats after 30 years of age. He got lucky on a couple third and fourth down plays. What the hell kind of coverage were the Steelers playing twice on a 5-9 wideout if Lamar ever had a shot at winning the Super Bowl? And I think it's very debatable that he didn't. The time is long since past. Good start to the show. Appreciate that, my friend. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Listen, you've got to take advantage when the opportunity is there, right? JL Custa chimes in. Q, I'm a diehard Steelers fan through and through, but I thought that I truly believe that Watt was set up that way. For what? The missed field goal? I mean, no, absolutely not. I mean, the kid missed it. The kid didn't want the kid didn't want any parts of that kick. He just didn't. But I'm still trying to make it a little easier for him. That's all I was saying. That's all I was insinuating the other day. But it doesn't matter at this point. You can't unring the bell. You can't. You can't. Now you move on. Now you move on. Baltimore is going to need a head coach, and the Giants need a head coach. And oh, by the way, a lot of other teams need head coaches. And they also need coordinators, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. I mean, the movement in the NFL is absurd right now. It's absurd. Was it shocking Dallas fires the defensive coordinator? What the hell else is new? You know, the Commanders, I thought that was a little surprising. They weren't bringing back, they aren't going to bring back Kingsbury. Witt is gone. Now, think about this. They went from, the likes of Rivera and Bieniemy, and then now to Quinn, and now you get rid of Kingsbury, you get rid of Witt. Now, there's going to be landing spots for these guys. There's going to be landing spots. But I'll just say again, I'm telling you, I believe we talk about the friction within these franchises, the friction. Man, I'll tell you, I'm not going to nitpick. Look, we mentioned this the other day with Harbaugh. The stubbornness, as some are you pointing out, or the reluctantness, I get it. Ravens fans, you can speak more to it than I can. I totally understand. And you guys are looking at it and saying, you know what? No, get rid of this guy. Go back, and it was the Patriots game. That was the game. It was the Patriots game. Derrick Henry was going nuts. He was going nuts in that game. That's a 10-10 game going into the locker room. And then I believe Baltimore led 17-13 after 3. Derrick Henry had 15 touches, 16 touches in the first half. He had 1 or 2 in the second, and he averaged 7.1 yards a carry. Now, I get it. You're back. That's your beast-like back. Work him into the offense. Get him going downhill. I said it going into this game last Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Run him, run him, run him. I understand. But all I'm saying is this. Compared to what I've had to endure over the last several years, incompetent head coaches, coaches that loses locker rooms, coaches that are on the hot seat 4 or 5 games into the season, the reshuffling, the retreading. If a team like the Giants, a storied franchise that's been a joke over the last 10 years, if they hire Harbaugh, that's not a 1-2 year shot. We're locking you in. We're locking you in. 5 years, man. We're locking you in. And you're going to have input. You've got weapons. You got Scadaboo coming back. You got Tracy in the backfield. You got Theo Johnson. You're probably going to go and draft a kid from Clemson, number 5, the wide receiver. That's a stud. You got Neighbors, who's coming off an injury. You're going to re-sign Robinson. You've got playmakers. The offensive line is fine. Fix the defense. So the nitpicky to me, that's fine. You guys want to be nitpicky, be nitpicky. But all I'm saying is, from where I am, say as a Giant fan or as a Jet fan or a Cardinals fan or a Raiders fan or a Browns fan, I think they would be foolish not to interview John Harbaugh. And if you're the Giants, I just think it's a no-brainer. I do. And I'm not trying to be prisoners of the moment. I like this handle. Ravens 76, Baltimore 5-4. Cue the turning point. Harbaugh refuses to address the O-line. Lacks situational football awareness and very, very stubborn. Good luck with that. So let me ask you a question. How do you then, now let's just be fair for a minute. I think your points are valid, but I don't necessarily agree with all your points. How do you explain then a guy that just simply goes out and he wins 10, 11, 12 games a year? Like, yeah, I'm going from 3-13, 3-14, 2-15, 4-13 to what? 10-6, 11-5, 10-7, 13-4, 12-5. I'm sorry. I'm going to take it. It's not, your point is valid with the stubbornness. And sometimes it gets annoying as a fan base when you just can't simply do what everyone else sees. But I can say this, I need someone who has chops, who's got stones, who can come in right away. That's what I need. That's what these franchises, this is what these franchises that have lacked for years, that have been laughing stocks. You don't think somewhere the Jets are thinking to themselves, oh my goodness, why the hell did we sit there? Why are we bringing back Aaron Glenn? Why are we bringing him back? Oh my goodness. I mean, teams will, John Harbaugh's going to get a job. He's going to get a job. Look, and I even think a guy like Brian Flores, he's going to come in and command the room, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. I would love to hire him as a defensive coordinator. He's going to have a shot at being a head coach, and he might be the right fit for the Raiders. You saw what that defense was able to do the second half of the season. They were shutting down quarterbacks left and right. You know, the Jets, if they were to get rid of Aaron Glenn, Aaron Glenn wanted the Jets job. Aaron Glenn played for the Jets. He was a revered player. He wanted to take on that job. It hasn't worked out. And I'm telling you, somewhere they're probably thinking to themselves, throw a dart. We'll rather take a Stefanski or a John Harbaugh than an Aaron Glenn. That's all I'm saying. You can't dismiss a coach that's won 200 games in a Super Bowl. You can't. You'd be foolish to do that. Whether there's friction, there's friction. Guys typically with strong personalities, there's always going to be friction. There's always going to be friction. Always. You just can't get away from it. You can't. It's how you act. It's how you adjust to it. It's how you cope, combat it or lack thereof. So you have to just kind of, you listen, I know it. I know the Ravens fans are annoyed. Franchise in Baltimore says, Q, I think you're overhyping and overvaluating him. He had a great career to start his coaching career, but remember, look at that team they had in that defense, and Flacco played lights out. What has he done over the last 10 years? All right, that's fine. Raven says, listen, I get it. Giants fan had it bad the last 10 years, but don't be so quick to hire anyone. Giants need to do their research before committing to Harbaugh. Honestly, Kevin Stefanski is better. I would be okay. I would be okay with Stefanski too. I would. I don't think you can go wrong with either coach. Now, here's the question. Is distinct too prominent with Stefanski than it is with John Harbaugh? Because Harbaugh, so much success. Now, Stefanski, two-time coach of the year, but there was friction within the Cleveland Browns, which is a dysfunctional franchise. How much of that do we also put on Stefanski? The whole Gabriel, Flacco, Sanders debacle. I think Stefanski is a good head coach. I think he was with a bad organization, a really bad organization. So I'm okay with Stefanski over what I've seen, but maybe I'm getting too giddy. The brunette just walked in, and maybe I'm falling in love. I've always liked Harbaugh. I've questioned some of his decision-making, no doubt, but I've always been a John Harbaugh fan. Always. I just think he's no nonsense. And listen, man, you've got, I want a guy, right? I want a guy that can just steady the storm, steady the waters, calm the waters. And it's Stefanski and Harbaugh. I believe both can do that. Now, here's a scenario, Robert's a Packers fan, and he's chiming in. Q, I know you mentioned this the other day, but what are the chances if the Packers are one and done, they move on from LaFleur? It's a very good question. Lloyd, who hosts Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, who joins me every week, said he doesn't believe that's going to be the case. I feel differently. There's always that shocking firing, right? I think we kind of saw this with either Tomlin or Harbaugh, and that kind of gave you your sixth, seventh coach on Black Monday or Black Tuesday yesterday, whatever. But LaFleur, I believe if they are one and done, if they just go into Soldier Field and get absolutely cooked by the Chicago Bears, I can see Green Bay moving on from LaFleur. Now, I know that they'll sit there and say their priority is to extend him. I would not go so fast as to say that. I know some of the insiders, some of the talking yappers are saying the Packers want to do everything in their power. I don't necessarily believe that true. I think it's a little bit of a smokescreen, a little smoke and mirrors. I really do. If they lose this game and they decide to extend him, well, then, does that mean that someone got to Ed Policy? Think about this. There were reports over the summer that the new team president, Ed Policy, basically decided against extending LaFleur's contract and expires after the 2026 season. So that's kind of the speculation, right? You look at some of these bad games. They struggled against Carolina. They struggled against Philly. They struggled against the Giants. They have not looked the part of a playoff ready team, certainly not a Super Bowl caliber team. And I think that's kind of the bigger deal here. I think you got to figure out, all right, let's look at the language and the verbiage of this contract and the fact that I'm not willing or I didn't want to entertain the thought of extending you. That tells me perhaps they are looking elsewhere. It's very hard to gauge someone's future, especially if it's an uncertain future. And I think a lot of it has to do, like some of these other head coaches we've talked about, his failure come playoff time. And this team, we talk about a guy like Harbaugh being stubborn, Andy Reid back in the day, the Schottenheimers of the world, even to some extent, Sean Payton sometimes goes south with his offense. LaFleur has had some bad losses in the playoffs. I mean, just bad losses that kind of sit and simmer with a fan base. Now, his salary, that's another conversation, right? His salary is right around Andy Reid making 20 million, Sean Payton making 18 million, Mike Tomlin making 16, 17 million. What do all three of those head coaches have in common? What do they have on their resume? They've all won Super Bowls. Now, Ben Johnson, different animal right now, upstart Chicago in a grueling division making 16 million. He doesn't have a Super Bowl on his resume. And LaFleur, you sit there and say, well, how do you get rid of a guy that's 76, 39, and 1 in 7 seasons? Well, you're not winning in the playoffs. That's a conversation, again, that no one else has been talking about. I'm telling you right now, no one has been talking about that at all. A lot of times you got to put it together. And we haven't seen that yet. And the playoffs are where you make your money as a franchise quarterback and as a head coach. And unfortunately, it's yet to be seen with some of these guys. Stefanski, I just think he was in a bad spot. Robert chimes in on XQ. I'm a diehard Packers fan. Excellent comment there with Policy. I was not aware of that. Well, that's a huge, that's a huge goose egg, is it not? Elephant in the room. New president. Think about it. It's like you're working at your job for 5, 10, 15 years, and you're tight with the manager or the supervisor. And they always applaud you and they always appreciate and respect what you're doing. And then they decide they're going to retire or they get pushed out, they get fired, and another supervisor or manager comes in. And for some reason, the guy just doesn't like you, doesn't like the way you talk, walk, act, sound, doesn't like anything about you. You're putting in your 40 plus, you're clocking in, you're clocking out, but he doesn't like you. So now, you're a couple weeks out, yearly raise, yearly bonuses, hey, yearly review. they keep pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. You're not a priority. That to me is kind of a red flag. All right, are they going to get rid of me? Am I not getting a bonus? Am I not getting a raise? Are they going to give me the shitty shift? That's kind of what's going on in Green Bay. The fact that in the summer, prior to the season, when most contracts get done, you rarely see the contract extension in season. You rarely see it in season unless they're really desperate to lock a guy up. Policy decides we're not even going to have that conversation. That to me is a red flag. Great content. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. That means a lot. Let me say this. We won the Super Bowl in 2012 because had a mutiny against him. They called him out on his foolishness. That was a great run by the Ravens that year. That was a great run. I mean, that season, I remember too. I always tell this story. 2008, covering the draft in New York, is when they really started to um, you know, do more with the social media element, right? TikTok, or I should say X, which was Twitter at the time. And we're sitting there, Ravens are on the clock, and then they show Flacco sitting at home in Audubon, South Jersey. I'm like, all right, there's the quarterback. And there was a lot of questions. I remember prior to the draft, because Joe Flacco started at Pittsburgh, transferred to Delaware. So I'm doing radio, Fox Sports affiliate in Delaware, 1290 the ticket. We cover the Ravens, we cover the Blue Hens. And I was doing always the half, the pre, and the post for Delaware Blue Hens. And I interviewed Flacco on my daily show, and we talked about the footwork. And I can tell he kind of got aggravated because the knock on Joe Flacco in college was, heavy feet, flat feet, couldn't move around the pocket, but had a ridiculously strong arm, like a cannon for an arm. I mean, Flacco was he can throw the friggin' football, man. He just had this gorgeous, gorgeous arm and release. And if you recall, the first year, I believe they got to the AFC Championship. They won 11 games that year. Came down a little bit, then won 12, then obviously the coup de grace. I think it was that 12-4 year where they got to the season. And also, too, they had a pretty decent defense. I'm not going to say top 10. I think they were, no, actually, no. Their defense that year, 2011, was top 5. Pardon me. It was their offense that was Their defense that year was top 5. They had a sick defense, but they still lost. And when I say they lost, follow me with this, because you know how it works when you flip the calendar, 2011 to 12. But the year that they won, Flacco had an unbelievable postseason. And I don't even think that was their best team. Ravens fans will tell me that wasn't their best team. They were 10-6, but they trounced Indianapolis. They got the miracle late when the DB of Denver fell asleep. They beat the Patriots. They dominated the Pats, and then they had the wild win against the 49ers, and Flacco was unbelievable during the playoffs. So it was everything kind of came into place and rounded out nicely for the Ravens. But, like what some of you guys are saying, sometimes players don't want to deal with a head coach. And the other thing, and I believe it's also the elephant in the room that is not being talked about, how much do you guys believe these players really have a say in what's going on? So when this report comes out that Lamar Jackson is potentially sleeping during meetings, it didn't really sit well with a lot of that locker room. And who knows if Harbaugh addressed it? Who knows if Harbaugh had a conversation with Lamar Jackson, or if they just glossed over. Lamar Jackson's a franchise quarterback. He's a 2-time MVP. But Lamar Jackson also has to have deep runs in the playoffs. And as Sal kind of chimes back in, Q, if there was ever a year, it was this year. No Patrick Mahomes, no Joe Burrow. And, right now, a iffy Josh Allen and an inconsistent Buffalo Bills. Ravens just were never able to get it back. They just never got the momentum going forward this season. Kevin C. and Tom's River chimes in. Q, I'm all aboard Harbaugh, and you mentioned this. You need someone that can come in right away and not deal with any type of crap or nonsense. But excellent point on Joe Shane. What if Harbaugh decides, I'll coach you guys, but I don't want him as a GM? Then you fire Joe Shane. You fire Joe Shane. I mean, it's a no-brainer. That's why I hate having this conversation. Why, when you have bad seasons like the Giants have had, or the Browns have had, or Arizona has had, or the Jets have had, why the hell in the world does an owner then sit there and say, we're going to retain the guy? We're bringing him back. Why would you even have that conversation? Now, it's Monday morning quarterbacking. Hindsight is 2020. Nobody knew 2 days later, a day later, after the Giants announced that they were going to bring back Joe Shane, that John Harbaugh was fired. But can you let it sit and marinate for a couple of moments? Can you? And I think it through. And they didn't even do that. All right, 38 past the 3 o'clock hour. A lot of NFL to get into. I got a lot of comments coming in. Don't forget, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase. Use the promo code BYP20. Get social with me. Very easy to do on X at IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Also on, my God, what other platforms? Kicks, Rumble, SR 1029 FM, The Game, the Odyssey app. Download it, please, and also search Coastal Sports Digital Network. And as I mentioned, we're powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off first purchase. Check out the show notes below. Also, get ready with tea, Three Brooks Bourbon. Very busy show. A lot of NFL to get into. We got to start diving into Wild Card Weekend. And for my Eagles fans out there, I hate to kind of dance around the block here, but the more I look at this game between the Eagles and the 49ers, it might be rinse and repeat. It might be that, I hyped up the 49ers, right? And I said, you might as well get it at 4:30. You don't want to get it at 8. Well, 4:30, yeah, that crowd's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be juice. A lot of hot toddies all over the place. I just, man, I'll tell you, now you got a rested squad with some of these starters. I'm sure some of the players were pissed off that Sirianni elected to sit them, rest them. I'm starting to believe that the 49ers are kind of walking into a lion's den here. But we'll go through all the games. We'll mix in a little college football. And as I mentioned, there is a lot of comments coming in on the Giants, Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, the Jets, Mendoza. What is he going to do? We'll get into that as well. Keep the comments coming if you like the content. Comment in, share, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Wednesday edition of On Cue, about 40 past 3 o'clock hour. Rich Quinones here. Keep it locked in. All right, welcome back, everyone. 337 on a Wednesday edition of On Cue. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Don't forget, YouTube channel, Rumble, Kicks, SR 1029 FM, The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Network, part of the Odyssey family as well. Got a lot of comments ripping through. Steeler Nation, as always, he's chiming in. Q, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that Tomlin's better than Harbaugh, but I feel like the players respect Tomlin more. That's a subjective conversation. It's a subjective comment. It's actually, it's, I believe every time when, when players are annoyed or when you hear grumblings and rumblings, coming out of the locker room, it's typically 99.9% of the time, it's after the coach or the GM gets fired. More times than not, when the coach gets fired, that's when players start to kind of sprout off because they realize they don't need to answer to anyone until the new head coach is hired. So, to your point, I don't necessarily believe that, you know, it's apples and oranges, right? Because both of those head coaches had very, and still in Tomlin's case, long careers with one franchise. So we talk about the consistency, the stability. There are franchises in the NFL that go through head coaches like a 13-year-old, young kid, playing sports every day goes through underwear, change clothes or sneakers on the blacktop. They're changing every 2 years, 3 years. So you go from Knoll to Cower to Tomlin, right? And then look at the Ravens. Who is the original? What was his name? Marchabroda to Billick, who won a Super Bowl, and then 18 years, 17 years with John Harbaugh for that Baltimore Ravens franchise. And sometimes these guys are set in their ways. Belichick, that long run with New England, the Patriot way. Well, then it becomes the Steeler way, and then it becomes the Ravens way. It's like, okay, my way or the highway. So I think Tomlin is a little more animated than Harbaugh. Tomlin always gives you the interesting soundbite, the tidbit, the quirk at the press conference. You just kind of listen to him speak and you're like, all right, sometimes you chuckle, what the hell is he saying? Doesn't make sense. And then sometimes he just gets right down to brass tacks. And the players, I don't like saying a guy plays harder for a guy, but sometimes it just resonates in certain locker rooms. And sometimes there are players that don't like a head coach that takes a no nonsense approach. Look, Brian Daboll, I think, was a clown on the sidelines. He was too emotional. It was like live and die by every play, and he was showing up players. If the Giants would have won 6, 7, 8 games, Brian Daboll doesn't get fired. We're not even having this conversation, and you're not even at top 5 when you're talking about the draft. Aaron Glenn says stuff that makes no sense. He consistently pushes back the goalpost. One day I'm questioning the defense, then I'm not questioning the defense. One day I'm questioning if they're playing hard, then I'm not going to question they're playing hard. He's in over his head. One more year for Aaron Glenn. That's all she wrote. But if the Jets did decide to move on from Aaron Glenn, you had your opportunity. You're supporting him because what you don't want to do is be like the Giants or Arizona or Cleveland or Cincinnati back in the day, where you're just hiring and firing, hiring and firing, hiring and firing. It's a bad look. It is a bad look. And sometimes if there's friction within the locker room, you got to figure out a way to deal with it. And in this case, the player wasn't going anywhere, but the head coach ran its course. That happens all the time in the NFL. Tommy C. Summers Point chimes in. Q, I think the Eagles are actually going to spank the 49ers. I'm looking at 28-10. The more I look at this, it's not a favorable matchup for the San Francisco 49ers. It's not. Yeah, they're getting healthy, but the Eagles are going to be rested, and you almost get the sneaky suspicion that their offense is actually going to come to life. And we haven't seen a consistently good offense by the Philadelphia Eagles. And with this OC, here's another conversation. And I hate to even bring it up to some of these Eagles fans, but I like to tweak. I like to tweak. So there's always been speculation regarding um, Nick Sirianni. And there were a lot of Eagles fans that wanted him gone a couple times over the last several years. Now, they won the Super Bowl last year, but then you go back and you look at some of their bad losses, right? Their bad losses. And everyone is kind of now going back to what recently happened Sunday against Washington. Shot for the 2 seed. You win the home game. You get another home game. You're hosting a divisional matchup. Here we go. Um, you blow the lead against Denver. You blow the lead against Chicago. You have the debacle against the Dallas Cowboys. Get this guy out of here. We don't care that he won a Super Bowl. What if the 49ers win this game Saturday and they win it handily? And Nick Sirianni still has these gaffes. Nick Sirianni still has these there's just horrible decision making, clock management, burning timeouts, not getting in Kevin Patullo's ear, talking about the offense going away from the ground game. Saquon's got 110 yards going in the locker room on 15 carries. He gets 4 carries in the second half. Heads are going to roll. Then it's only going to make sense. It's only going to make sense that Eagles fans, again, will sit there and say, oh, man, we got to get rid of this guy. Ravens 76. I know this is off topic. That's all right. Josh Allen gets a pass if he doesn't make the Super Bowl, considering no Mahomes, Lamar, Burrows in the playoffs this year. AFC is wide open. No, it's a great. Listen, we call it, because you're new to the show, and we appreciate you chiming in. We say it reading the room, but you read it. You read it perfectly. That's okay. That's a good comment. It keeps within the topic of conversation, my friend. And I think if we're going to criticize Lamar Jackson, if we're going to get on those quarterbacks, the Lamar Jacksons of the world, the Joe Burrows of the world, Justin Herberts, the Trevor Lawrence, in this case, to your point, with no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar, it has to happen this season for Josh Allen, no? Doesn't it? It's right there. Look, this team, it's not a juggernaut, but you don't have to worry about going through those quarterbacks like you just mentioned. There's no, oh, we got to go to Kansas City. It's a house of horrors. There's no, oh my God, Derrick Henry's running downhill. Can't deal with it. Oh my goodness. Who dat in Cincinnati and Joe Burrow sitting back in the pocket. They're protecting him and he's ripping up our secondary, where they're running the football for 200 yards. You cannot be objective at all if you're a Bills fan and tell me there's no pressure on A, that head coach, B, that franchise, C, that MVP Hall of Fame trending towards quarterback. It's got to be on Josh Allen. And I know it rubs you guys the wrong way when I say this, but Josh Allen has to go in the phone booth. Clark Kent come out with Superman. I know it pisses you guys off when I say that. But this has to be the year for Josh Allen. Sure. Jacksonville's a tough team. The Texans are a tough team. Denver is a young, tough team with a very good defense. There are surprises in the AFC, but this is why everyone and the league and the optics, perception, the narrative, the national media, they're in love with Josh Allen. Why? Because when Josh Allen, you need a Josh Allen play, what does he do? Josh Allen makes a play. When you need Josh Allen to extend a play, what does he do? Josh Allen extends the play. When he's got to be Superman, what does he do? He becomes Superman. Now, he's a full participant in practice. Forget about the foot injury. I don't care about this. I think Jacksonville is going to try to sack his. You know why? I think they're going to pressure him consistently and try to disrupt him in the pocket. You got to be careful. You got to contain him. You can't let him scramble. But to the commenter's point and question and thought, 100% accurate. 100% accurate. You got to get out of the playoffs. You got to get out of the AFC, I should say. You have to. We talked about all these head coaches in August when we were doing the oven mitts, the barometer of which coach is on the hot seat. And we gave you 5 or 6. We mentioned Gannon. We mentioned Brian Daboll. We mentioned Harbaugh. We mentioned Tomlin. McDermott was a big one. Zach Taylor was another one. We mentioned these guys for a reason. McDermott has talent around him. And it's just, man, I'll tell you, and this is no disrespect to Jacksonville. If you are Buffalo, you cannot lose to Jacksonville. You can't. You can't. And Allen and McDermott can push back with the media and dismiss the perception that they can't win in the playoffs, but that's the reality. That's the reality. And these guys have been around for a long time. Okay. I mean, McDermott is kind of outlasting some of these guys. And he's a grinder. He's a good head coach, and they play hard for him. And the franchise means a great deal to Sean McDermott. They're 12-5. They're leaking oil. They're the 6th seed, and they got to go on the road to take on a very hot Jacksonville team. McDermott, when I say he grinded out, this guy was a safety at William and Mary, and he basically worked his way up. But like you guys know, as much as I know, sometimes a head coach can only get you so far. And he turned the Bills into a contender. He restored that pride. We saw that great run of the 90s by the Bills, late 80s, early 90s, and he's restored it now. He's taken a guy, and Brian Daboll's, give him credit with Josh Allen. We took a quarterback that was kind of loosey-goosey, a little bit of a gunslinger, a little bit of a Brett Favre in him, and now you got an MVP caliber talent under my leadership. So that means now expectations are even greater. But he's 7-7 in the playoffs. Now, 2 AFC championship games, okay, but they both lost to who? Kansas City both times. And they've had multiple divisional round exits. And we all know, the squib kick, right? Let's, tying drive in the final seconds, a squib kick. I mean, it was, you got to win more than just 1 or 2 playoff games. You have to. And would it shock me if Jacksonville defensively shut down Buffalo and they ran the ball on Buffalo, and let's say they beat them 27-13 and Allen gets banged up, McDermott might be out of a job come Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, or we're going to start to have the conversation, if not now, is McDermott going into 2026 really on the hot seat? Is it really hot for him, or are we going to see Buffalo, pull the plug on him 3 or 4 games in if they struggle? It's these quarterbacks and these head coaches, they're joined at the hip. Eagles fan, 49ers fan, Eagles by 14. New headphones, who this? AKA Heat 12 Man, AKA Heisman, AKA Steeler Nation, AKA Duval, also known as Vince. What's going on, brother? You got to be fired up for your Jags. Scotty Boy chimes in, not sure you will see a consistently good offense against the Niners, but I do think the Eagles defense might snatch a score or give 2 short field goals. This is a tricky game for the 49ers. It is. Now, listen, I said this on the record. I would rather, as an outside observer, I'm waiting to see if the Eagles are going to get knocked off. Give me 49ers, not Green Bay. But for some reason, the Eagles match up well against the 49ers. We always talk about, styles make fights. You look at that front four, that pass rush, you can turn Purdy over. He's good for a pick here and there, sometimes a pick 6, but they have to control the time of possession due to the 49ers. And by doing that, you got to run the football. You have to run the football with CMC. You've got to be able to have these lanes not clog up. And the Eagles at times might sell out to stop the run first and foremost. If that's the case, it's going to put a little more strain and pressure on Purdy to get the ball down the field. Now, if the secondary shows up like we saw against Washington, albeit backups, but if the starters play like that, San Francisco's got a puncher's chance. They're live if they can do that. Big win over fake Superman uploading now. Oh, come on. Question is, when he loses the Jags, what will the excuses we use for fake super? How do you call Josh Allen fake super? You know what? You're getting a little cocky, Vince. You should be celebrating your true fanism, the Steelers, and then you flip flop and waver. Like Superman, you went into the booth and did a 180. You've come back. Now, all of a sudden, you're in love with the long flowing locks of what Trevor Lawrence and, Cohen and all those cats down there in Jacksonville and the what? 126, whatever the hell the area code is down there. And now you're getting cocky and arrogant on a Woosah Wednesday? Are you kidding me? I mean, let's be honest. What the hell has Jacksonville done in their time? Come on. I'm a little surprised by you. I thought you would be a little more diplomatic, a little more humble. It's not like Jacksonville's there every single solitary year. It's not like they're raising, banners and retiring numbers, right? By the way, Buffalo is a 2-point favorite on the road. That's a 1 o'clock CBS kickoff down there in Jacksonville, Florida. It's going to be a good game. If the Bills can't stop the run, they are in trouble. I mean, it's as simple as that. If they can't stop the run, Jacksonville's going to blow them out. Buffalo's run defense stinks. They stink. You are going to get a heavy dose. And the other thing is, too, when, Jacksonville, when you run the football successfully, and you really haven't seen, they're kind of doing a, and you would know, a little more of a back by committee, right? But it's going to open up the offense. Now, I'll tell you the kid that I really like. I mean, Jacksonville's got some weapons. They got some weapons, but I think a sneaky move was locking in Myers. That's a sneaky move. And Thomas is a big time player, and the kid Washington is a stud. I mean, this kid, I remember this kid from Penn State, but man, he's starting to come on pretty hot. I think he's got 17 receptions over the last 3 games for well over 400 yards, 350 yards. So they're going to have an opportunity to move the football. If they run it, they're going to set up a lot of play action with Trevor Lawrence, and you're not going to have to worry about Lawrence trying to scramble in this one. This is going to be a Josh Allen game. Can they establish Cooks? Can James Cook run a little bit in this game to open things up for Josh Allen? Or is all the pressure going to be on Superman to make plays? But to be fair, going back to your point, there's pressure on Josh Allen to win this game. I got the Jags beating the Bills. There's a lot of money is coming on Jacksonville. A lot of money right now is moving on Jacksonville, right? And the other thing is, what team's been hotter over the last month of the season? So this is the portion of the show or the portion of the NFL season where we say, man, you don't want to play these guys. So they lose 36-29 against Houston back in November. What have they ripped off? 6 in a row, 7 straight, and they're putting up points all over the place. 48 against the Jets, 34 against Denver. That was a big win. 23 against the Colts, 41 against Tennessee, right? 35 points they put up against the Chargers. Yeah, Jacksonville, they're hot. You're right. You might not want to face them. I'm thinking if Josh Allen beats Jags, he won't be stopped, but I have Jags all day. They're my only guarantee of the wild card weekend. Scott going with a G on a Wednesday? Stones. I mean, I thought you would hold that for a Football Friday edition of What the Frig, but you're going with the guarantee on a Wednesday? I thought you guys would sit there. I thought if there's any guarantee game this weekend, I really felt you guys would say it's the Rams over the Panthers. That's the G game. I thought you guys would sit there and say, lock it up, lock it in, Q, guaranteed, here we go. Forget about the 10.5 the Rams are laying. That's the game. And now Scott on a Wednesday guaranteeing Jacksonville with a win. Stones. My goodness. Does he? Is that solitaire? Really? Is that a little shot right there? You throw in a little shot across the bow, do you? Remember now. Remember, Vince, I love you. You know that. But I will spite pick. And we know my track record. I've had a 75% clip, right? And I'm not playing solitaire while I'm covering games. Just remember that before you come in with that nonsense on a Woosah Wednesday. That kind of crap. We don't need that. We don't need that. By the way, at this point in their careers, Cam Newton has the Cam Newton conversation. Oh my God, this is now going to get under. Now I'm getting annoyed. Has had more successful one. Allen has better numbers, but Cam was a few plays away from a Super Bowl. Oh, now we're going to have this conversation, right? I gotcha. So then, by that rationale, you would sit there and say, if McDermott wasn't dumb enough to have the kicker squib it, Josh Allen goes to a Super Bowl. Stop. Stop. I am calling Josh Allen Superman because I want to. You want to call Cam Newton Superman? Call him Superman. That's fine. Did Superman fall on a fumble in the Super Bowl against Seattle? Correct me if I'm wrong. You want to compare Josh Allen? So, I'm not even, I don't even know why I got to entertain this. I don't even know why I have to entertain this. Josh Allen is trending towards a Hall of Fame career. Cam Newton's not. Oh, and you were talking about Cam Newton. I thought you were talking about Stephen A. Cam Newton, he just says stuff out of his ass. Come on, stop. It's ridiculous. You're going to compare apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. Apples and oranges. This guy was an utterly ridiculous MVP. 35 touchdowns, over 4,300 yards. Plus, we didn't talk about what he did scrambling, Josh Allen. Cam Newton had a nice little burst, a nice little run, a nice little cup of coffee in the NFL. MVP, deserved it. 3rd and 15 on the road against the Giants in a game they were up 28 and almost blew, by the way. And he was deserving of that award. Absolutely. He was deserving of that award. 15-1. But other than that, he didn't win more than 10 games in his career after that. He won 11, I think, and then he was just banged up. Good quarterback, but let's not compare him. Oh, by the way, 3-4 in his playoffs. Let's not compare him to Josh Allen. That's just stop. No, it's just goofy talk. You were zoned in, you were locked in, and then you come up and then you take a shot at me. Actually, that's not really a shot at me. You're just saying we're the real Superman. That's more a shot at Josh Allen. Scott, did you see the Sixers beat the Knicks on Saturday? Topic was ignored money. It wasn't. It was brought up, and I told you guys this. I made a point of reference, okay? This is the nonsense. See, this is the stuff that I was talking about. You guys, and I don't know why I allow the inmates to run the asylum. It's utterly ridiculous. It's preposterous. So I was doing you a solid and said, we'll talk NBA around Christmas. So yes, you're going to tell me. So I didn't watch the Knicks lose the other night. Yeah, of course I watched the Knicks lose the other night. I mean, what are you telling me? Something I didn't know? So I'm supposed to come on the air? You want me to lead off with the Knicks losing to friggin' Philadelphia 76ers in a game they lost by 1? No. The bigger story is they lost 4 straight. And they're not a good basketball team right now. And I'm getting a little concerned. But that comment right there, you're not reading the room on a Wednesday. You know it, and I know it. Well, it only took an hour. Super Bowl pick, if I may ask. I have Texans and Seahawks in the Super Bowl. So, full transparency. Ravens 76, be more 54. Love that handle. In August, and the listeners and the viewers and the commenters will let you know, I predicted Denver versus Washington. Now, I still believe Denver has a puncher's chance, but the last time I looked, Washington needs a lot of help. Cam Newton, Wusa trap cue. You will never get that time back. I know. 30 seconds. I know. And so Vince just likes to throw it at me because I think he's a little bit of a Josh Allen hater. It's really, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to like all these quarterbacks that we're talking about. Newton, as I said, had a nice career, but it's not on the level where Josh Allen is going. Tom C. and Summers Point Q. I don't even think that game's going to be remotely competitive. I think Barkley probably goes off for about $135. Eagles 35, 49ers 10. Wow. I mean, are we giving the 49ers a puncher's chance here, guys? We're not? We're not going to give them a puncher's chance. So out of all these games over the weekend, if I were to ask you guys right now, you handicap these games for me. You tell me on a Wednesday, share with me on a Wednesday. You're talking about the guaranteed win. If we're locking it up right now, Rams over the Panthers, is that a guaranteed G? Is that a W right there? Packers and the Bears could be a little goofy. It could. Like, you might get the bad Caleb Williams, which has been a rarity this season. I mean, Caleb Williams has played really good football. I'm a little concerned with Jordan Love because the problem is now Willis is banged up. Malik Willis is questionable because he's dealing with that shoulder and that hamstring injury. If Jordan Love gets knocked out and Willis is not available, you got to go to Desmond Ridder. But is that a gimme? Obviously, it seems as though the sentiment of the listening audience likes Jacksonville. They like the 49ers. How about the Chargers on the road against the Pats? You know, we talk about pressure on Josh Allen, pressure on Trevor Lawrence. How about Justin Herbert? I mean, when do we start having a conversation about Justin Herbert, who's starting to have this career and he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, Dan Fouts, but, just got to one AFC championship game. Herbert's going to put up numbers every single solitary year, and he's playing hurt, and I give the kid a ton of credit, but he's been in the league now. This is sixth season. So, I mean, are we going to sit there and say, well, he's not a franchise quarterback just yet? This is a big spot for Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Can you imagine if they go in on the road and beat a very good New England team? Then the narrative is going to be, see, New England, they play no one on their schedule and then they play a decent team and they lose. Or is it going to be the Chargers can't get it done with their quarterback? Because no matter what, any way we look at it, the playoffs, we tag these wins and losses with the quarterback. No matter what. We're always coming on the air after the fact saying, man, I can't believe how this quarterback played. Or, hey, he played lights out. Or, man, he played real bad. He played poorly. It's all on the quarterback. But we don't have that conversation a lot about Justin Herbert. Not a Josh Allen hater. I've just seen him play already for Carolina and go to a Super Bowl. Oh, you're talking about Cam. You may not think so, but I don't see any difference between Cam and Josh at all. I don't know if it's really about the differences per se. I think Josh Allen is a better thrower of the football, and it took a little bit of time. Cam Newton was a different kind of animal. Cam Newton was a big physical, kind of like Josh Allen with those traits. Cam Newton took a lot of hits, right? I mean, he did. They were gunning for Cam Newton. But that is also the type of quarterback that I believe the NFL wants, some of these teams want. So the Ravens fans, you have Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, I think, is a brilliant quarterback. There's September, October, November Lamar Jackson, and then there's December, January Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson needs to be upright. Lamar Jackson gets banged up because of his style of play. Now, is that the Josh Allens, the Cam Newtons, the Lamar Jacksons? Can that last? Like eventually, it kind of bites you in the rear, does it not? Lamar Jackson was sacked 36 times this past season in 13 games. In 12 games in 2021, he was sacked 38 times. But he's a dynamic quarterback. I mean, he really is. Now, he had a down year. He's been banged up, as I mentioned, a bunch of ailments. But he reminds me, right, that Newton-ish, that Randall-ish, back in the day. I'm going to pull down, I'm going to take off, I'm going to run. Cam Newton, Josh Allen does the same thing. Josh Allen was a wild man early in his career because his accuracy was bad and his decision-making was bad. Now, that's another thing. Sometimes when all the pressure is on you to make a play, and this is where I think Jacksonville will have the edge. Well, let me backtrack for a second, and you guys tell me if this is an accurate statement. You look at these two quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen. They're confident guys, right? We would deem them as a gunslinger. Like Trevor Lawrence will throw it down the field. Josh Allen will throw it down the field. Okay. Tight game. A, who are you going to trust more? And a tight game, who do you believe will turn the ball over? And Trevor Lawrence has shown you at times, now he's playing some of the best football of his career, but is this kind of a Sam Darnold last year where it's going to strike midnight come Saturday for Trevor Lawrence, right? He turns back into a pumpkin. He's not a great quarterback. He's not. Is he playing great football right now? Is he quarterbacking the position? Is he playing a great quarterback position right now? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is probably the best he's ever played in his career. Now, we can sit there and we can wax poetic. We can give him all the accolades. We can say, man, this guy is locked in, not turning the football over aside from the pick against Indianapolis. He's just been locked in over the last month of the season. I think he's got 16 touchdown passes and 1 pick. But if he goes out and he's 13 of 23 for a buck 56 and 2 picks and they lose the game, then Jacksonville all offseason, they're going to sit there and say, is he the guy? Well, I think you can also, to some extent, have somewhat of the same argument for Josh Allen. Like, okay, the road is paved for you. It's open. There's no Burrow. There's no Lamar Jackson. There's no Patrick Mahomes. Like, get it done. Get it done. That's the one beauty and downfall of the NFL. That's the one beauty and downfall of the NFL. We're always looking at the quarterback because they touch the ball the most. They're under center. They're the franchise player. They're the recognizable face. So we're either going to put so much credit on them, not enough credit on them, or we're going to blast them. Rams could find out that the Panthers never seem to go away, could catch them off guard. Not likely, though. The Texans should win, but sometimes they often seem too conservative with no run game. Cute, great point. If there was one quarterback in this league I would trust with the game on the line, it's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. And that's why I believe. All right, I wanted to do this a little more on Friday's show, but we can do it now. I mean, we can just carry over. It's not a problem. If we go right now and look at the quarterbacks that are playing this weekend, and again, we can take away the entire resume and body of work. Let's live in the now, which is something as sports fans and talking heads we don't like to do. But let's live in the now. Stafford, Young, Love, Williams, Allen, Lawrence, Purdy, Hurts, Herbert, May, Stroud, Rodgers. So we got what? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, my liberal arts math. We have 12 quarterbacks playing this weekend, a wild card weekend. Out of those 12 quarterbacks I just named, give me your top 3 that you trust the most. You're down 6, a buck 35 to go, 70 yards, and you got 2 timeouts. I bet you guys, I guarantee you're going to tell me, or I'll actually tell you the 2 quarterbacks you're going to tell me. Right now, you are going to tell me Josh Allen, and the second quarterback, I'm telling you right now, you're going to tell me is Matthew Stafford. Now tell me I'm wrong. These playoffs this weekend, the 2 quarterbacks you probably trust the most if you got to go 70, 80 yards late and come from behind is Stafford. And it's Allen because we've seen it. Now, if you want to go by living in the moment, the last month of the season, well, Stafford's come down a little bit. Then you can sit there and say Drake May. You can sit there and say Trevor Lawrence. You can't say Jalen Hurts. You can't say Bryce Young. Stafford had a couple bad picks against Carolina. They lost that game against Atlanta. So we'll stick him to the side. But Lawrence is coming on. May is coming on. Stroud is coming on. I mean, you look at these quarterbacks, it's fascinating, these matchups. This is why this year it's so wide open. Did anyone peg in? If I said, hey, these are going to be the playoff quarterbacks, Young, Nix, May, Williams, Herbert, Stroud. I mean, maybe you sit there and say Stroud, maybe Herbert, but the other guys, no one saw this coming. Nobody did. The Rams just can't become complacent, as Scott mentioned. You can't. You're on the road. You got a young team. They're not good, but they're young and they're scrappy. And what happens is you get that turnover. They already beat the Rams. They had a couple picks, and one was a pick 6. They turned over Stafford. They shut down the ground game. So they know, hey, we're not intimidated. The worst thing that happened to the Rams is that they allow Carolina to just hang in this game. because now Carolina's going to have a little confidence. You go back to the game that they won, that was a month ago. Now, would you sit there and say Carolina's ascending or the Rams descending? I think they're kind of right where they should be. They've struggled a little bit here and there, but what Carolina was able to do in that game is run the football. They were able to run the football. They averaged right around 4.6, and it opened up for Bryce Young. Bryce Young completed 15 passes, but 3 of those were touchdowns, and they were able to go over the top. And that's the other thing that no one's talking about. You can throw a little bit on the Rams. You can throw a little bit. I mean, you had a running back out of the backfield make a long catch. You can throw. Carolina's got weapons. They're young. They're not a great football team, but they're buying in. They're believing. They're probably sitting there right now on a Wednesday saying, well, wait a second. Why not us? Well, the national talking heads would say you dropped 2 straight, 3 of 4 to close out the season. And, you should have beat Tampa Bay. And you got a young quarterback, first taste of the postseason, young coach, first taste of the postseason. Whereas a month ago, McVay and Stafford, same sheet of music. I mean, Matthew Stafford was the MVP. And I trust Stafford over Young. But to Scott's point, you cannot allow Carolina to hang in this game. You can't. If the Rams, if we're talking about, if you're watching this game in the fourth quarter and the Rams are winning 21-17 and they just turn it over, or it's a 17-17 or 21-21 type of game with 6 minutes to go, that's a problem. Now, logic says that the Rams should win that game because they've got veteran players. They've got guys that have been there before, and they have a Super Bowl winning quarterback and head coach. But it's a really fascinating point you bring up. Like, I don't see at all. I just, for the life of me, I think the Texans absolutely destroy Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers are on borrowed time. Baltimore defensively had their heads up their ass. They did not get to Aaron Rodgers at all, and they let him, a couple throws, vintage Aaron Rodgers. I think the Texans are going to blitz, blitz, and blitz. Now, we did see the Steelers. What negates that blitz? Quick little bubble, screen, boom, Gainwell. You get Metcalf back. But I think the Texans, I just have a feeling they are going to shut down that Steelers offense, which is inept. It's anemic. They gave that game to Baltimore, and Baltimore just I gift wrapped it and stuck it under a tree, and you basically stuck it in the closet. Chargers, Patriots, I think that game's going to be close. Bills, Jacksonville, I think that game's going to be close. The Bears, Packers, I don't have a feel. And the 49ers and the Eagles, I want to sit there and say the 49ers are finally due to beat the Eagles in a big spot. Regular season a couple years ago, different animal. They dominated the Eagles. They broke the Philadelphia Eagles. But then the Eagles came back and they rebounded the next year and they won the Super Bowl. And the 49ers always get hit with these goofy injuries at the worst time. Eagles offense has been so sporadic, inconsistent. I still don't trust that offensive coordinator. I don't. Stafford and McVay, Shanahan and Purdy, Hurts and Sirianni. So that's body of work. That's body of work. Stafford, McVay, we've seen it. Shanahan scares me in the fourth quarter of a tight game. And I'm not going to, full transparency, Purdy makes me a little nervous at times. He has that I can try to extend the play too. He's got a little Josh Allenism, right? I can extend it a little bit. I can make that throw. I can roll to my right and throw across my body, which is, we all know, is a no-no. It is a no-no. The other concern I would have, and I don't want to sound the alarm for the 49ers fan. I'm telling you what I feel. The 49ers they have to find a way. I'm not even talking about run blocking first and foremost. I'm talking about pass protection. It's critical. It's essential. That is going to be one of the biggest keys in this game because, yeah, you've got weapons, but they only work when you're in second and short, third and short. The 49ers can ill afford to be in third and long. They just, they can't. They can't. You can't have these 3 and outs. You're giving the ball right back to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles defense, the gut tells me will make a play in this game. The gut tells me they will turn Purdy over. It's just a question of, do you turn them over in the first quarter and the crowd's in it and you're down 7-0, but the 49ers take the ensuing drive and they come back and tie it up? Or you turn them over down 3, 6 to go in the fourth, you get the ball back short field and you punch it in and you win the game. Like, at what point of the game are they going to do it? But it's coming. It's coming. And I hate the fact that I've had to go back and forth with this game because in the beginning of the year, I thought the 49ers would win 10, 11 games. And I also believed if Shanahan didn't, he was going to be out. With all these injuries, he's done a hell of a job. Hell of a job. Allen, Stafford, Hurts. I mean, that's pretty fair. Now, if you're going recency bias, we've seen May do it. We've seen Williams do it, but they're all young quarterbacks. That's the other thing. All young quarterbacks. All young quarterbacks in these playoffs. Bryce Young, right? Love, Williams, Lawrence a little more longer in the tooth, but Herbert, May, and then obviously Aaron Rodgers, but Stroud. You got these young guys starting to come on a little bit. Steeler Nation, Q, I can't disagree with you. I hate to agree with you. I actually think this has the makings of a 28-10. Yeah, and that's the other. So the buzz coming out of Pittsburgh, talking about now that John Harbaugh was fired. It's interesting. The buzz now is kind of like, okay, well, what about Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers? Like, what is the luck going to run out? Is this the game that retires Aaron Rodgers? And I know he wants to come back, but I also believe he's such a flaky guy that since he has one foot out the door, if they lose and they lose in just ugly fashion and he's sacked 5 or 6 times, and oh, by the way, that could happen. Part of me believes he's going to retire. He's going to retire. And look, you get to a point, he's an all-time great. He's an all-time great. He gave you 2 or 3 throws the other night that said, man, that's vintage Aaron Rodgers. He's not that guy anymore. He's not. And I believe the luck runs out against the Houston Texans. I really do. I believe the luck runs out. I think they are going to pressure him non-stop. He's not mobile. He can't run around. He can't. And he's taken a lot of hits over the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's been sacked, I think, 9 times over the last 4 games. I mean, they're getting to him. They're getting home. And the Texans have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They consistently get to the quarterback. They turn teams over. They know how to flip the field. They play the short field. They're a really good football team. We're giving all this love to Jacksonville being a very hot team. How about the Texans? They won 9 straight, 10 of 11. They're sneaky good. They're sneaky good. And I get it. Some of you guys are saying it's going to come down to the quarterback. Yeah, okay. It usually does. But this team's very good. I mean, when I say they get to the quarterback, they get to the quarterback. They tackle. And they force turnovers. They're going to be a scary team. Don't trust a single AFC team at all, including my Jags. Nobody has proven they can do it, so they all have to show and prove. I would say out of every team in the AFC, you have to trust Buffalo just to at least get to the AFC Championship. And keeping in the theme of what we're saying, if that makes sense. Hurts' playoff resume could push him to 1. Poetic justice would be watching her. I mean, seriously, that's horrible juju. I can't even float that comment out there. Come on. That's ridiculous. Of all the games this weekend, I do think that the Niners and Eagles special teams play a huge part in that game, especially the way that Jake Elliott has been kicking. How about special teams in general? That's the one thing you learn, even as a kid watching all these wild card games growing up. There's always a quirky play. There's always a goofy, quirky play somewhere. And it could be a block punt, could be a return, could be a muff punt, kickoff return, could be a block field goal. Your guess is as good as mine. Mikey G chimes in. Q, always enjoying the NFL talk. I'm with you. Do not allow Harbaugh to leave the building. Um, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. BF Browns fan 6. Q, good stuff on Harbaugh. I'm telling you right now, can you imagine Harbaugh in Cleveland? It all lines up. Based on what? Based on what? Like, why would you want to go to that franchise and you don't even have a quarterback? This is no knock on Gabriel or Sanders. No. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I just I don't believe it. I don't. Q, interesting take on Sirianni. You know, I don't listen to their clowns on the dial, as you like to say, but it does seem to be a little clamoring among the Eagles fan base if they can't get it done or make a deep run and the play calling stinks. Now that Harbaugh and Stefanski are gone, would you see Nick Sirianni being on the hot seat? I can see a lot of stuff, but you're talking about, you guys wanted, some of you guys, goofballs, you wanted the quarterback benched who just won a Super Bowl. You want the head coach fired who just won a Super Bowl. Now, it could have went south. They haven't played like a defending Super Bowl champ, but the postseason, as we know, and the playoffs are a different animal. You don't like where they're trending. I didn't like 10-1, lose 6 straight, and then lose to Tampa on the road. But then you follow up and you dominate last year. It was easy peasy. You blew out Kansas City. You, in essence, ended their dynasty. So I'm going to pump the brakes on that. But we are irrational. We're not rational. We're irrational. So if they go out and lose 28-10 and Patullo, Saquon Barkley doesn't get any touches and there's no creativity of the offense, and it's like, hey, go to the mailbox and cut across to the Cadillac, the offensive coordinator is going to be fired, not the head coach. But the head coach is going to take some heat and some grief because the head coach did not allow anyone else from outside the building to come in for an interview. That's on Nick Sirianni. We can't even debate. Dude, you can't even debate that. You can't. And I'll give you another name too. Now, I'm not a fan, and I wouldn't want him as a Giants head coach, but I'm going to throw out a name that I can see being a dark horse for the Cleveland job. Doug Peterson. I'm telling you right now. So you go back, you beat the hoodie and Brady with a backup quarterback. You have an MVP in Carson Wentz, tears his ACL against the Rams on the road, still throws a touchdown pass. You ride Nick Foles, you get back to the playoffs. You get the little bounce off the double doink against the Bears. You lose a heartbreaker because Jeffrey can't catch it against the Saints. And then it kind of goes down south. Okay. Goes to Jacksonville. Then there's a little bit of a disconnect, right? But think about it. His time with the Eagles that second year, who you throwing to, right? Who you throwing to? So you go to the playoffs, you win a Super Bowl with a backup, you beat Brady, you beat Belichick, you win another playoff game with the same backup, you win a division title with a quarterback that really doesn't have a lot of weapons. And I'm trying to clean up the mess that was Jacksonville. Now, the fall guy had to be Caldwell. Okay, fine. But you win a division, and remember that great comeback they had? They were down 25, 26, 27, nothing, whatever the hell it was against the Chargers. So I understand, like Stefanski, Like somebody's, it doesn't end well, and Stefanski doesn't have the resume that Doug does. It doesn't end well for some of these head coaches, but that's a name to watch. Doug Peterson, link him to Cleveland. I'm telling you right now, link him to Cleveland. Q, are you high? No, what are you talking about? By the way, fresh roasted Vince. Went with a little dark roast today. Straight black. No azúcar. No cafe con leche. Not high. Have to trust Buffalo. What have they done for me to trust them? We talk about McDermott being fired because they haven't been able to do it. I trust them the least. Oh, you can't. You can't trust Buffalo the least because out of all these teams we're talking about, besides the Rams and the Eagles, where's the playoff pedigree? It's not in Carolina. It's not in Green Bay. It's not in Chicago. It's not in Jacksonville, Duval. It's not in San Fran. It's not in Los Angeles. It's not with New England. It's not with the Houston Texans or the Pittsburgh Steelers. Come on, stop. On a Woosah Wednesday? Yeah, we relax on a Woosah Wednesday. I'm not stoned. I'm not high. I am waiting for the Eagles fan, though, to chime in and start with the fire Sirianni stuff. I mean, this guy's getting ready to play a friggin' playoff game, coach a playoff game up. And just like that on a Woosah Wednesday, we can always, there are certain things in life we can count on. Death, taxes, and of course, the ghost of Luca Brasi making an appearance at 4:30, mind you. Eagles fire Sirianni and Patullo, hire Harbaugh and Kingsbury. Harbaugh to Cleveland is about the fact he wanted to draft Sanders to the Ravens and the fact he's from Cleveland area. I actually think it could work. No, he's not doing that. He's not. Harbaugh wants a quarterback. And listen, I don't want to hear this. He wanted to draft Sanders. That's all well and good, but Sanders isn't. He's not touching the field unless Lamar Jackson tears an ACL. No. Now, can Cleveland have an interest? Sure. And to your point, you're right. Harbaugh is a Ohio guy. He's a Toledo guy. I don't see it happening. I just don't. I think he wants a team that he believes he can come in and compete with right away. Now, Cleveland's defense, yes, you don't have a quarterback. And that's just being honest and fair. Can it be a mystery team? Sure. Absolutely. Can Cleveland be that mystery team? Can Arizona be that mystery team? Okay, sure. Can the Titans be that mystery team? Yeah, absolutely. But the Giants have also made it no secret they're enamored with Harbaugh. They tried to go after Harbaugh. I know we typically don't talk about trading for coaches, it's a rarity, but they love John Harbaugh. And you got to remember too, yeah. I mean, what about Atlanta? You've got, listen, other than the Ravens, you got the Giants, the Browns, Atlanta, Arizona, Tennessee, and the Raiders. Okay, they all need head coaches. Out of all those teams I just gave you, what team can a guy like Harbaugh? What landing spot can John Harbaugh walk right through the door and say, "I can turn this around quicker, quickie." I'm sorry. And there's nothing in the coffee. I can turn this around quicker. Tennessee, they're dysfunctional. The Raiders, beyond dysfunctional. Don't have a quarterback. Arizona, you don't even know what the hell's happening with Murray. Atlanta, Captain Kirk doesn't want to be there, and you don't know about their quarterback. Cleveland, questions around the quarterback. Giants, got a franchise quarterback in Jackson Dart. It just makes sense. And maybe there's a sentiment he wants to go home, right? Like that song, I'm going home. Maybe he goes to Cleveland. So I'm not going to 100% outrule it. I'm just giving you what I think. Giants, I mean, no. I'll live with Stefanski. And I don't need you to spite nonsense. The fact that an Eagles fan literally came on the air, I don't even know where half of you other guys are. And can we put this up there again? Eagles fire Sirianni and Patullo, hire Harbaugh and Kingsbury. Why not hire Harbaugh and Stefanski? Hell, why not try to go out and get Belichick as defensive coordinator and bring back Andy Reid? Why not? Do you really believe that? If the Eagles lose, they're going to fire Sirianni. Patullo's done. You got to get rid of him. He's a horrible offensive coordinator. But Luca Brasi, I mean, geez, you're better than that. You're scaring off some of the new listeners and viewing audience with that nonsense. Personally, think the Browns should hire Kingsbury. His offenses are explosive, and hopefully he learned from his Arizona stint and figures it out this time. Kingsbury's not a bad hire. Q, what the hell no? On what? On what? On what? I mentioned Kubiak the other day with Lloyd. Kubiak is the answer. If we need to start from the quarterback position outwards, he is our defense. Our defense is pretty much set. I mentioned the Kubiak. I also, if you guys remember, I brought up Kubiak to Lloyd Vance for a couple reasons. Now, he is going to be so Vance Joseph is scheduled to interview with the Raiders. Now, what if? Now, remember, here's the other thing you got to remember. These coaches, they're still in the playoffs, like Kubiak with Seattle. You can't interview them. So these teams fire quickly. You know, they had an idea Carroll's going to be one and done. But point is, you want to get a jump start, right? You want to get a jump start. Now, the Ravens, from what I read, they requested an interview with Anthony Weaver and Clint Kubiak. You know, Kubiak is a Houston guy. So I'm bringing it up in this regard. If you go back and you look at his body of work, obviously with his father, was with Denver, was with New Orleans, right now with Seattle. I can see a guy like Kubiak. I can kind of see him leaning towards, Atlanta. Atlanta, if they bring in Matt Ryan, now there's another connection. You got to kind of piece everything together. See, like Atlanta, Matt Ryan's a PA guy. Brian Dable's a PA guy. Matt Ryan comes in and say, hey, hire Daves as our offensive coordinator. You know, that's another name. Daves is a good offensive coordinator, not a good head coach. But point being, I can see Kubiak wanting to work with a young quarterback. I can see if they want to stick with Penix. I can see the Titans. I'm worried about Cleveland, the way they run the franchise. I believe that all these teams I gave you, the most appealing spot because of the pieces in place, and I'm not saying it as a Giant fan, but logic says, wouldn't it be the New York Giants for a guy like Harbaugh and or Stefanski? That's just the way I look at it. Like my ideal world right now, hire Harbaugh, Stefanski's the OC, and you go get Flores as defensive coordinator. Now, you might say, now am I high, which I'm not, but that would be a wonderful scenario. If it played out, I would be giddy because I think they would be a much more competitive team. And the 3-4 wins jumps to 6-7. And then year number 2, you're making the playoffs with a third-year quarterback in Jackson Dart. Yeah, you're right. Listen, you're right. Because now I'm being fair because Harbaugh and Stefanski have been fired. Okay? So yes, I will lose my you-know-what. I love winning 9, 10, 11 games because I haven't had that in a long time. Losing the playoffs, at least I'm making it. But again, it's kind of the example I give you guys sometimes. You're sitting there talking to a blonde and all of a sudden the brunette walks in. Excuse me, I got to get up for a moment. Like McCarthy, see ya, drinks on me. Oh, let me meet the brunette at the door. That's Harbaugh and or Stefanski. Yes, I will lose it. Because these guys are out there now. That's why I'm so pissed off that the Giants already committed to Joe Shane. I don't want Joe Shane anywhere near the interviewing process. Go sit outside. Go sit at the small kids table. And stick him in a closet with the mush. You can have input, but I'm not really taking the input serious. Which, again, why the hell did they even want to retain him? Oh, no to Peterson, please don't put that out there in the universe. Hey, and there's another. See, Scott, you failed to also connect the dots on that as well with Doug Peterson. D, not a T, as you guys would correct me. You failed to connect the dots with Doug Peterson. I mean, think about it. Go back. Go back. Doug Peterson, little cup of coffee with Miami, little cup of coffee with Carolina, little cup of coffee with Green Bay, little cup of coffee with the Eagles, little cup of coffee with Cleveland. And now Doug Peterson works with quarterbacks. See, these teams, I need guys that are quarterback ready, quarterback driven. I need offensive minded guys. I would rather stick a guy like Doug in, and I'm throwing the name out Cleveland because I'm hearing stuff. That's all. Doug Peterson's going to get some looks. He's going to get some looks because Doug flamed out in Jacksonville a year or two to reset, and now here we go. So we kind of forget about what you did in Jacksonville. We remember what you did in Philly. But guys like Doug, Kubiak, LaFleur, Daves, Stefanski, they want to go in situations where we believe we have a franchise quarterback. Harbaugh has coached for 18 plus years, right? Harbaugh was with Baltimore for a long time. He had the pocket passer, and now he's got the athletic guy that can scramble and make plays. He went from Flacco to Jackson. Dart is a little version. I can throw in the pocket. I can stand in the pocket. I can take off and run. It would be like a dream for Harbaugh. It would. It would. That mentality, that hard nosed approach. Now you go from, Henry, who's a Hall of Famer, and you got a wild man in Scatterbo and Tracy running the football. Now you have identity. You're opening up the passing lanes for your quarterback. You want to throw the football down the field. And I also believe Harbaugh wants to get out of the AFC. I believe Harbaugh wants to get out of AFC. And if I'm Harbaugh and Stefanski, I want to get out of the AFC. But the other counter argument is there's only 32 of these jobs, right? There's only 32 of these jobs. So it's hard for me to sit there and say, Brian Flores, you don't want to go there. T chimed in, Q. I know you mentioned this the other day, but the whole Mendoza thing is absolutely ludicrous when you think about it. What if he does decide to go back? So McShay, and I don't know why Todd McShay, well, I know why he said it, but the timing of it, that, you know, you're calling for players to boycott certain teams. So are you telling me that the Raiders are not as dysfunctional as the Jets? I think they're both dysfunctional franchises, but with the Raiders, Tom Brady this is the other thing. So Brady has his hand and his input in with the Raiders, okay? Miami is most likely going to stick with McDaniel. Miami's bringing in Troy Aikman. What the hell does that mean for Dan Marino? I don't know. Atlanta is bringing in Matt Ryan, quarterback, Hall of Fame guys, right? I'm starting to wonder if this is the new norm now where we're really going outside. We want to bring in these former players that had a great resume and career because it goes back to a conversation we all had last year. The evaluation when it comes to the quarterback, the NFL quarterback, or these college kids is just horrible. And I believe now the reason Matt Ryan, Troy Aikman, Marino, Brady, okay, these are guys that played at the highest level. The eye test, I can't sit here with my cup of coffee and pull up YouTube and say this guy can sling it. They've got the better eyes. And I believe now that's why they're starting to bring these guys in. And I say all that to say this. Just because McShay is fed up with a team like the Jets or the Raiders and he's denouncing them and saying, don't go there. Hold on a second. You mean to tell me it's not appealing to a quarterback to get some type of guidance, tutelage from arguably the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady? Now, you want to argue it's a bad franchise? Okay. But this is the NFL. you can be bad for a long time and then you blink and you become good, i.e., Carolina. They struggled. They were a joke. Now they're in the playoffs, i.e., Chicago Bears. You got to fire the GM. They didn't. They extended him. They fired the head coach, brought in the wild man, Ben Johnson, and now they're in the playoffs, divisional winners, i.e., Jacksonville. Clean up the mess, get rid of Doug. Well, hold on a second. I got to fire someone, Caldwell out. Let's clean up the mess and bring in Cohen. And now Trevor Lawrence is flourishing in the playoffs. So you can turn it around sooner rather than later in the NFL. And I think it's a bad look for McShay to come out and say that. I do. I really do. Like, that's not, you can sit there and say, well, 30, maybe 31, can't allow him to go to the Jets. Listen, you're almost, you're now saying, and you're doing a disservice to some of the players that play hard, right? I mean, the comment is pretty harsh. So, like, let's go back a second and the backstory. So McShay's former college teammate was Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas was a previous GM of the Jets. The Jets fired him. McShay, who's buddy with Douglas, was set to join him in the front office, but it never happened. So obviously, McShay has an agenda when pissing on the Jets, but I think it's Bush League to sit there and say, I can't allow a guy to go there. Like, who the hell are you? Like, you're a working member of the media, man. You had a little clout. Now you used to sound like a jerk. You do. I mean, you want to call him out, fine, but call him out. But don't sit there and say, if I'm college, say, look, I'm not too confident about the franchise, how it's run. I think I would really have to do my due diligence if I'm a young player. New York can eat you up and spit you out. But basically, he's saying, no, it's a shit organization. Stay in school, kids. I mean, I'm not a fan of that. But it could, again, totally, totally upset the apple cart. Absolute facts, Q. The ownership and the GM are the worst in Cleveland. And even though I would think people would want a head coaching position, it doesn't look like the most desirable place. Yes. I'm surprised to hear you say you want to. I said either or. Like Stefanski, the more I take a step back, to Scott's point, who's a diehard Browns fan, he would know out of all the listeners that tune in and chime in, it was a cluster. I think Stefanski could be a good coordinator. But if you back me into the wall, would I be pissed if they hired Kevin Stefanski as head coach? No. Would I be disappointed they couldn't get Harbaugh? Yes. Do I want McCarthy now? No. I don't. I feel like Coach of the Year awards keep people from seeing the truth. He didn't maximize Baker or Watson's talents. Offensive coach that doesn't score. Well, you got to remember one thing. The organization, okay, the organization failed Baker Mayfield. The organization failed Baker Mayfield because if you recall, didn't Baker Mayfield light it up in a postseason game against the Pittsburgh Steelers? One of the most wildest games I've ever seen in my life. And then Baker got hurt. Now that's an organizational decision when it comes down to it to get rid of the quarterback. Do coaches have a say? Yes. But ultimately, that was a decision that this guy's hurt. No, not happening. I mean, that game, I think it was a wild card game against Pittsburgh. He went off. He went crazy. And it was their first win since 1994. Now, you go to 2021, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. They exercised Baker Mayfield's fifth-year option, right? It was like right around 19-20 million. But then, you get the injury. He had the torn labrum. And then he missed time. And then after they traded for Deshaun Watson, they signed him to a contract extension. And Baker Mayfield's like, well, I'm not going to deal with this shit. I'm playing hurt. I'm playing banged up. My guts are all over the field here. I went out. And that's what they do. They traded him. They traded. Baker Mayfield was traded to Carolina for a conditional 5th round draft pick. a 5th-round draft pick, and now he's resurrected his career. So I get it. We're nitpicky, and that's okay. But again, back me in a corner. I want Harbaugh, but I'll be okay with Stefanski. And you can bookmark it right now. I'm not going to bitch, whine, or complain because I've seen just crap. Okay? Crap. And the other thing is this. Why is you talk about like, I'm not a Joe Shane fan. I'm not a Joe Shane fan, but you can't retain him. Like, why are they retaining Joe Shane? Why did Cleveland retain Barry? Why are some of these GMs retained? Now, Ryan Poles makes the Bears look like geniuses. Listen to Haslam's conference Monday. Basically said that Barry kept his job because of the season. He detailed his moves and why, but he said he's 120 days to fix the team. I'd have to go and read into that or look into that. 120, that's weird. I don't want Stefanski as coach. He's not a player's coach. He doesn't make his quarterbacks better. Money Mike 718. Yeah, I think coordinator I'm okay with. But what coaches in the NFL do make their players better? Or their quarterbacks? Like, can we honestly say that Sirianni has made Jalen Hurts better? The narrative that Brian Daboll, now no Jackson Dart, regressed. No one's having that conversation anymore. I think to take it another direction, Mike, and I appreciate the comment, or at least another thought within that. Some of these guys are supposed to be quarterback whisperers. And you also have it's a team game, right? You've got to have an offensive line. You got to be able to run the football. You've got to have playmakers. And yes, to your point, you want a quarterback to help, or a head coach help elevate or take the quarterback to the next level. Now, Daboll was with Buffalo and fell in love with that type of quarterback-ish in Daniel Jones. They won a playoff game on the road, and then they got a contract extension. He got a contract extension, then he got hurt. I'm not going to sit there and say Brian Daboll got the best of Daniel Jones, but he did help him. It worked, but we want to sit there and say Belichick, Brady, Montana, Walsh, Marino, Shula. It doesn't work like that. Mahomes, Reed. Some of these guys are just naturally great, and the head coach can kind of take a step back. Like Stefanski to me would be a good offensive coordinator. You're comparing Stefanski, head coach / offensive guy in Cleveland. Now sticking with the Giants and what they have. You got a tight end, Theo Johnson. You got running backs in Tracy and Singletary. You're going to get Scatterboo back. You're going to get Neighbors back. You're going to re-sign Robinson, hopefully. You're probably going to draft that kid, the wide receiver. You'll draft a wide receiver probably at 5. The offensive line you can live with. Let the quarterback go and throw it. The hell with these RPOs, but if you need to design a couple runs and you need him to scramble a little bit, he's going to do it with his legs. Like he can take the offense to another level. Mike Kafka, I mean, they bubble wrapped Jackson Dart against Minnesota. They were so afraid to have this kid get hit again. I'll say offensive mind, offensive coordinator, fine. Head coach, if the Giants hired him, I'll live with it. I'm telling you right now. Now, get me a real good defensive coordinator. Hell, I would love the Giants to get Brian Flores, but that's not happening. How is Stefanski good offensive mind when the Browns' offense was horrendous while he was there? Again, you got to have the players too. You have to have the players too. You can't sit there. Now, did he not win Coach of the Year? Was that a fluke? Twice? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You guys can't have it both ways. I mean, he won Coach of the Year twice. Did he not? Correct me if I'm wrong. He won in 2020 and 2023. And they made the playoffs. We're not going to give him any credit for that, is basically what we're saying. They won 11 games in 2020. They won 11-5 that season. He had Baker Mayfield throw for 26 touchdowns. He played 15 games. Okay? I'm pulling it up right now so you guys don't think I'm crazy. And they were so in 2020, with a good quarterback, they averaged 26 points a game. The Giants over the last 10 years are averaging 18 points a game. So that snuffs out your argument right there. That's the first year he won Coach of the Year. 2023, they won 11-6. They averaged 23 points a game. 24 points a game, which is not bad in the NFL if you have a good defense. And they went to the playoffs and they got waxed. And they did it with a 38-year-old Joe Flacco and a Watson that got hurt, and a PJ Walker and a DTR. Remember Dorian Thomas Robinson and a Jeff Driscoll. So with those quarterbacks I just gave you, a 38-year-old Flacco, a journeyman in PJ Walker, a journeyman in DTR, and a journeyman in Jeff Driscoll, this guy won 11 games and took the team to the playoffs. And come on, what are we doing? Let's give credit where credit is due. Q, the one thing that's hard for me to see is who are the guys who could be good GMs. I could look it up, but I have no knowledge in that area. But my Browns need a better GM. They need, yes, the Browns, Joe Shane, the Giants need a better GM. Good GM candidates are not hanging off a tree. They're not. They're really not. I mean, think about some of these guys. Some of the guys, Cunningham, Tillis, Dodds, they have really strong scouting backgrounds. Okay? Really good, strong, but it's all about the other thing too is you got to remember, and I've had this conversation with James Hasty, who created CPAS, which is basically coaching performance assessment tool. He grades, he's got the in with the NFL, which is very rare as a former player, as a really good former player who played for the Jets, Kansas City, and the Raiders, that bump and run coverage back in the day for Kansas City. He created a tool that grades coaches. And at first, he created it to wipe out the bias when it comes to the coaching search, right? We all know the Rooney Rule is a joke. We know why it's in place, but no one ever hears by it. But he always would tell me, he was just telling me this the other day, about the nepotism in the league, hiring your buddy, hiring your kid, hiring your nephew, hiring your uncle. It doesn't wash. It just doesn't. But it's all about how these coaches assemble coaching staff. So we are so keyed and locked in on the players. Yes, you need players to win in the NFL, but with the right coaching staff around your head coach, you can cultivate very good talent. You could create a winning culture. It takes time. So I got to look at all these coaching staffs that guys like, Kingsbury, Kubiak, Stefanski, Harbaugh. You got to go, boom, 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 boom. Like I know for a fact when Dayball decided I'm going to give Mike Kafka the play calling, he wasn't ready for that. And then he stripped him of the duties and then he gets fired and now Kafka's there. And you see, he's not an offensive mind. He's not. He's an assistant to assistant. He's not a coordinator and he's not a head coach. He's just not. And these GMs don't fall out of the sky. They don't. How many Eagles fans years ago wanted Howie Roseman fired? Now he's a Hall of Fame GM. Is Arizona a good landing space? I don't know. But they'll interview a guy like Nagy. They'll interview Joseph. Raheem Morris, not a good head coach, good defensive coordinator. Kubiak, Weaver, passing game coordinators, Thomas Brown. These guys are going to get looks. There's one team in the NFL that has an opening at the GM spot, and that's Atlanta. And they got rid of their GM and their head coach, and they finished the season hot. They won their final 4 games. They finished 8-9. They tied with Carolina and Tampa Bay for the best record in the NFC South. Do with that as you may. Do with that as you may. The only request they put in was with the Bears assistant GM, Ian Cunningham. Now, are they going to try to get a GM in place first? Of course, because the GM is going to oversee who they're going to hire. So to Scott's point, it's not like GMs are, falling out of the sky. And the other thing is that should worry you a little bit if you're not on board with Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry is the guy that's going to hire the guy. I just think we're looking at Stefanski. It was a bad season, 6 seasons in Cleveland. But man, this guy, and I know you don't want to hear it, and I've been critical of him. I'm not making excuses. It's hard to succeed when you're kind of throwing into a quarterback room that there's no rhythm or rhyme. And his tenure, they also, you think they want, Deshaun Watson was a horrible contract. And you got a crowded quarterback room. And all the limelight and the spotlight was on who? Fourth and fifth round draft pick. It was on Sanders. So sometimes you got to take all that into consideration, the entire body of work. I just told you this again, 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 again. Listen, Giant fans, you want Harbaugh. So do I. If you got Stefanski, it's not the end of the world, right? Dabo won Coach of the Year. What did that really mean, though? He was a horrible. But it's what he did. Daniel Jones had his most productive season. You had a coach with 4 or 5 quarterbacks win 11 games in the NFL. Come on, man. You're not going to give him any credit for that? If you guys want to throw in my friggin' face Mike Tomlin with his winning records, then I can throw back Coach of the Year. Because the argument is, oh, it's got to be Cohen in Jacksonville. Oh, no, it's got to be McVay with the Rams. Oh, no, it's got to be Sirianni with the Eagles. Oh, no. But you guys are getting all giddy over it. All I'm saying is, I think you have to just step back. I'm not saying Stefanski's a Hall of Fame coach. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is sometimes these coaches flame out, but they turn out to be good head coaches. Let me give you a perfect example. Who's coaching New England right now? Who got fired by Tennessee and everyone said this guy can't coach? Now you're going to throw in my face that he's got a all-world quarterback right now? But Vrabel is that guy. That's your example. Flame down in Tennessee, guy can't coach. Yeah, he can. He's got a very good coaching staff. He knows these guys inside and out. He's familiar, obviously, with the franchise, and it's worked out. And he plays in the AFC East, where now all of a sudden they're starting to be the bad boys. So that also helps. But I got to give credit to any head coach that wins 11 games with 5 quarterbacks playing during a regular season. I'm not the biggest Stefanski fan. I told you this. I want Harbaugh. I don't want McCarthy. But if the Giants hired Stefanski, again, mark the tape. I'm not going to go nuts over it. I'm not. And Dayball, if you guys are new to the show, I hated to hire. I wanted Dayball and Joe Shane gone after last year. But Mara's loyal, and they decided to run it back because they believe they made the mistake with Daniel Jones. Brian Daboll was talking about Jaden Daniels. And Joe Shane gets tagged with this draft that produces Carter, who came on late, and Jackson Dart. I'm not a Joe Shane fan. Coach of the Year is a nice talking point, but at the end of the day, results matter more. Results don't match offensive mind. Awards say so, but results don't. You're right. Awards are just that. Awards. They mean nothing, right? It's all about the body of work. He has a good scheme, but the players just weren't good enough. But as head coach, he made bad decisions for sure. But you can see the offensive idea he was trying to play. In my opinion, Kingsbury is way better offensive mind than Stefanski. I like Kingsbury too, but I also think Kingsbury, man, I like Kingsbury too. I do. He's a very interesting free agent cat. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened in Washington because, Daniels goes down and they're working with a backup in Mariota. But I would not mind Kingsbury as well. All right, one more comment. We got to start wrapping it up. You guys are fantastic as always. What is this? Has there ever been a coach of the year that won the Super Bowl afterwards? Coach of the year and won the Super Bowl after. So that's Kiki. She's thinking. I don't know. We'll ponder that. Let me take a quick time out. We'll wrap it up. I got some more comments I want to get to you guys. Hang tight. A couple minutes to play with. Tell you what, the dog's probably 28 pounds and she eats like a horse. That's a very good comment, man. I don't know. That's a great point. When Raven, well, I'm just saying, once in a while, Money Mike, once in a while, I will make them. It's a rare, it's a rarity on the air. So, would you say Harbaugh is a type of coach who would have say over GM? If so, I might take the gamble. I think Harbaugh is a franchise builder. You we can talk about the Harbaughs, the Tomlins, the Reeds, guys that have been in place for a long time and they've been consistently solid head coaches. They win. If I am an Eagles fan, I can't be having this conversation. If I'm a Rams fan, I can't have this conversation. If this was 10 years ago and I'm a Patriots fan, I'm not even bringing this up. I've seen horrible football over the last decade. And if you guys have listened to me for years, all I want is consistency. And when you go through the Pat Shermers or the McAdoos, the Shermers, the Judges, the Brian Dayballs, you go through 5 head coaches in less than 10 years. That's where the Giants are at because they got rid of Coughlin 2015, 16. McAdoo and his Denny size menu took over. You're talking 10 years, 5 head coaches. Take a step back. That tells me there's what? No consistency, no rhyme or reason. It's a rudderless ship. It's a joke of a franchise. What the hell are they doing in the building? Why does everyone have their head up their ass? Now you can wipe away all that toxicity. You can wipe away all that nonsense. You bring in a guy that you know can plant a flag. You know, he's always respected the franchise. He's enamored with a young quarterback. He can handle the New York market. He can handle the New York media. Okay. You take him out of the AFC. He's got that edge to him where he's an NFC East kind of guy. And you stick him with the Giants. And yeah, you jump from 4 to 7 to 9 and you make the playoffs in a couple of years. And now you start to have some consistency because Dallas, you never know what's going to happen. The Eagles are getting older, right? And Washington's still trying to figure out, but if they get their, you know what, together, they're on the rise, but you can compete. So, yes, you're talking to someone that's winning 4, 5, 3, 4 games a year of just, you guys listen to me long enough. The season ends in October. I'm fishing. It's horrible. I'll take my shot with Harbaugh. I will. And if Stefanski can come in and get to 10 wins too, 11 wins, or Kingsbury, I'll take my shot with those guys. At this point, anything, let's be honest, is better than what I've seen over the last several years. It's horrible football. I go back to the days of Shermer when they're playing the Rams and they give up a 3rd and 36, long touchdown. They lose by 40. McAdoo, where they get blown out. His second year because no one's paying attention. They're not tackling. Joe Judge that tried to be the tough guy and has the quarterback take a knee in the 3rd quarter of a game at home in December because he doesn't want to run a play. And then you got Dayball who gets so enamored and so the theatrics on the sideline always basically throwing his quarterback Daniel Jones under the bus. Like, get these clowns out of here. Bring me in a guy like Harbaugh. Bring me in a guy that can just calm the storm, just weather the storm. That's it. Now, all of a sudden, people are walking around when their chest is up, their head is up. They're not head is down. They're not afraid to make eye contact with some of these head coaches or afraid to walk on eggshells. He's going to come in and he's going to clean up the bullshit and the nonsense, and you're going to play hard for him. They haven't had that with these head coaches. So we can nitpick all we want, but you can't tell me that Stefanski, Harbaugh are not the two hottest names out there, because they are. And everyone knows it. The Jets are probably like, what the hell? The Raiders are like, we got to grab one of these guys. Arizona, we got to grab one of these guys. Atlanta, we got to grab one of these guys. Because they know what these guys are bringing. Look, NFL minds know more than us. They know more than us. That's all. They know more than us. So, yeah, Harbaugh is no nonsense. And look, the Maras respect Harbaugh. Owners watch what these guys are doing, right? Uh, Everybody wants Harbaugh, including the bunker. I don't think the Giants would meet Harbaugh's standards to want to coach there. What's their standards? Seriously, what are you doing? What are we doing here? I'll tell you this too. Eagles fans, worry about your playoff game, because your day's coming. It's not like your roster is getting any younger, my friend. And as much as you guys have pee-peed on me over the last decade, I can tell you this right now, right? The hens, the chickens, the mice, the rats, whatever, they're coming home to roost. Or is it rue? I don't know. But you know where I'm going with this. Let me see. Only two teams I see Harbaugh going to, Giants or Falcons. All the other teams don't have pieces. Wow, you're throwing the Falcons as a dark horse team. Interesting. Got to hire the GM first. Do we know the quarterback? You got a very good running back. And here's another point. That's an interesting point you bring up, Mike. Would we say the worst division in football is what? It's the NFC South. You can win that division, obviously, 8 or 9 games. Harbaugh wants out of the AFC. And there's no landing spot. He's not going to take the Titans job. He's just not. Taylor's not going anywhere in Cincinnati. Well, Cleveland. And Aaron Glenn is coming back. So it's really up to Cleveland. Is he going to take the Raiders job? I don't believe so. Because, look, Pete Carroll, think about this. Pete Carroll, Hall of Fame head coach, a lot of wins, a lot of divisional titles, a lot of playoff appearances, Super Bowl, 1 year in Raiders, done. I mean, that's it. Now, he had a fall on the sword because he brought in Geno Smith. Is Harbaugh looking at the Raiders as a landing spot? You get Mendoza. I'm intrigued by that. The other thing is, we're not going to be able to have this conversation in 2 or 3 more weeks. I believe these coaches, Kingsbury, Harbaugh, Stefanski, I think they're going to be, you get through the Rooney Rule, I think these guys are going to be hired sooner rather than lately. So, I can't actually say what I just said because the draft is in April. He'll have say, and it depends on if, Moore and Mendoza are, keeping to the theme, and they're going to go and they're going to come out and get drafted. But that's a conversation for another day. It's another conversation for another day. I think these coaches are good. I think some of them got raw deals. And I think if you put them in the right situation, the right spot, they can flourish. That's all I'm saying. All right, 511. Excellent job. You guys hung with me for well over almost 2.5 hours. My goodness. I wanted to hang on to get all the comments. I appreciate you guys greatly on a Woosah Wednesday. Back in the saddle, manana. 4 to 6. We're firing off at 4 o'clock tomorrow. For all the new listeners and commenters, if you like the content, if you enjoy the show, just do me a favor, like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. We are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, Three Brooks Bourbon. Get ready with tea. Played against sports, 2 locations, Deptford and South Jersey, and also on SR 1029 FM The Game, part of the Coastal Sports Digital Network. That is on the AUDACY app. You can get me Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. Just lock me in on cue. All the notifications are on the YouTube channel. And also, too, tomorrow, a lot more NFL. We'll start diving into a little college football. And how about this? Yes, we will sprinkle in a little NBA. And we'll continue to talk about the coaching carousel that's going on in the NFL. Because, as I said, your guess is as good as mine. Your guess is as good as mine. I wish we had an idea of where some of these head coaches are going to land. I don't, but we'll try to figure it out. Let me squeeze in 1 or 2 more. Bob in Summers Point. down the short chimes. An interesting point with all these theories of where these head coaches are going. But to your point, Q, I actually tend to side with you on this one. Harbaugh just feels like a giant head coach. Joe D. Haven't heard from Joe D in South Philly in a while. Q, I don't care if the Eagles lose. We're not firing Sirianni. Joe D's like the biggest Sirianni fan in the world. Um, I'm still very, Salim is a Washington fan. He just asked me, Q, I'm hearing a lot of interesting things coming out of DC. It seems as though there's a disconnect between the OC to DC and Quinn. And we both know in that case, the head coach isn't going anywhere. Yeah, I mean, that's 2 seasons. Kingsbury was the offensive coordinator. And again, did a great job. Jaden Daniels' rookie year, he gets hurt, not so much. They struggle to score points. And then Joe Witt, they couldn't make stops in any of these games to get teams off the field. So both of them, after 2 years, and now again, that's a new offensive coordinator for a young quarterback in Jaden Daniels. So that's something also to consider. But I definitely think Kingsbury is a hot name as well. The Giants are gonna interview Vance Joseph. I'd bring him in defensive coordinator. Kingsbury, I'd bring him an offensive coordinator or head coach, and then Harbaugh. Kafka's gone. And here's the thing: it fell into Joe Shane's lap. It really did. Now Kingsbury intrigues me. He does. He intrigues me to work with this offense in Jackson Dart. Absolutely. And if you recall, the Giants were kind of high on him. He was mentioned as a head coaching candidate. But he was more, I wanted to be an offensive coordinator. Here's a better use of my skill set. Now, do you give him the reins? It kind of went sideways, right? When he got full control over Arizona, but you give him a quarterback to develop and the offensive control. I'm telling you, he's 46 and look what he's young. Look what he's done with quarterbacks that are mobile. Kyler Murray won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels in Washington. Here we go. Offensive Rookie of the Year. We were talking about Daniels being an MVP. Now, the inconsistency, spreading the field a little bit, the push, the pace. I think the Giants want to go up tempo next year. That's kind of been the knock on Kingsbury. But again, I'm nitpicky. I can't have everything. I can't have it all. I can ask for it, but I can't have it all. So we'll talk a little more about that tomorrow as well. Let me close out a couple comments. First time watching. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that, brother. That means a lot, man. Thank you. Who do you think the Ravens hire? I man, I believe if so the Dallas Cowboys just fired their defensive coordinator. Okay? Dallas, if they were smart, they would interview Brian Flores right now. Right now. But if you want to bring in a guy that is also no nonsense, this is a name. You're not going to like this. So Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, obviously there was a disconnect. We see it all the time. When the relationship's coming to an end, you air the dirty laundry, and then unnamed sources come out. Harbaugh gets fired. You got that report from a couple of the beat writers that Lamar Jackson was sleeping in these meetings. I don't know how much credence you put to it. There was a disconnect, right? And Harbaugh getting fired. Let's just call for what it is. It wasn't that they lost against the Pittsburgh Steelers or the fashion in which they lost. He was on the hot seat coming into the season. It was no surprise. It was no surprise. They were betting favorite to win it all. But I believe that Lamar Jackson and Harbaugh just weren't on the same page. And when it bleeds into the locker room, more times than not, players side with players. Unless you're a clown. Unless you're like a Pickens. And I'm not trying to pick on Pickens, but he's goofy. Right? Or an Antonio Brown. Like, Players will side with a two-time MVP over the head coach. Now, I can't lay all the blame of the Ravens' failures on John Harbaugh's feet. And 18 years is a very long time to be in one spot. But I think Brian Flores is a name. Now, do we wash away his time with Miami? Maybe. And I'm going to give you another name that you're probably not going to want to hear. Matt Nagy. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, listen, Matt Nagy got ran out of Chicago. One winning season in 4 years. But, that's we kind of went through this recycling of head coaches, that early kind of carousel. Um, he's got interviews lined up with the Cardinals, the Titans, I believe the Raiders. And I think a lot of these teams need to cast a very wide net. Nagy might be a dark horse. He might be back on the sidelines, right? Giving him a second chance, right? He goes 12-4 in year one. Hey, what can you do for an encore? And then it went. And the thing is, they had some pieces in place. Um, he that defensive mind, right? Now, obviously, you're talking about a guy who's an offensive guy, but talking about OC positions because he went back to Kansas City back in 2023. Um, but I'll tell you this, they had some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. It's one of the reasons they were able to go 12-4. They forced a lot of turnovers. It had really nothing to do but the offense. Can a guy like Matt Nagy now, quarterback guy, right? Offensive guy, sticking with Lamar Jackson. You bring in Flores. You could technically bring in Flores first. Um, I mean, they're going to retain their coordinators, I would assume, right? If not, if you bring in Matt Nagy, maybe you want to bring in Flores as a defensive coordinator. But those are two names I can see, and it might not be popular with you guys, but that's where I'm thinking. If the Browns aren't better with their new coach, they will look crazy because they had a great coach. Well, and that's one of the reasons I think the Giants need to, you know, get the deal done ASAP. All right. Again, you guys are fantastic. Appreciate all the comments. I got a lot on X and TikTok. We'll get through them as well. Don't forget, follow me, SR1029 FM The Game, at Rich Q on Q, TikTok Rich Q on the mic, 525 on a Wednesday. You've been tuned into On Q. We are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. We will talk to you manana, 2 hours to play with tomorrow, 4 to 6, more NFL, college football, CFP, a little NBA. We'll mix in a little hot stove baseball as well. Check out the notifications. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll see when we fire off live. Again, fantastic. You guys hung with me for well over 2 hours. You guys are the best. Appreciate the banter and the engagement, and look forward to doing it again tomorrow. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Have a good Sports Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Be safe, be sound. And we decided we expand the banker hours on this Wednesday, 4 to 6 tomorrow on another edition of On Cue.